Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Alex Dworkin and I'm a managing partner at 40 Capital. We specialize in one-of-a-kind mathematical approach to the market where we analyze the market and individual stocks in multidimensional space, and when we do, essentially perfect order emerges that allows us to predict what any given stock or the overall stock market will do in both price and time. And we can typically do it on multiple time frames, whether it's long-term or short-term, it doesn't really matter. If the structure is there and our calculations work, we can essentially ascertain what that particular stock is going to do going forward. Now, I personally believe our work is nearly identical to what Jim Simmons was able to accomplish at Renaissance Technologies, if you're familiar with Jim. So today we're going to be looking at one of our fast movers. We just completed the research for it. And if you're not familiar with our work, if you're not familiar with our videos, basically fast movers are stocks that are about to exhibit very powerful moves of 50% or more within a relatively short period of time, within 12 months or less. So what you see here on the chart is a perfect example or illustration of that. This is the chart of crude light, a long-term chart. And basically what you see on the bottom and the top are our cycle composites. Very similar to her cycles if you're familiar with her cycles, but much more complicated than that. So in our work, by the way, let me just very briefly mention that the visual output you see here is just a summary representation of what is a very complex set of calculations, because what we do behind the scenes is we ask our very powerful software to analyze the entire chart and then pull out those cycles and project them into the future. So that's actually quite heavy math behind the scenes in order to arrive at these very simple triangles that you see on the chart in front of you. So basically what we found over the years is that the top composites are responsible for putting in major tops, and the bottom composites are responsible for putting in major bottoms. And this is another discovery that we've made that allowed us to be able to calculate these so-called fast movers. So what we found is that when there's a period of time between a major top and a major bottom is very short, let's say 12 months or less, or vice versa, it could be a major bottom to a major top. When that period of time is, or when there's a short period of time between these two major inflection points, typically, not always, but typically, an equity will move very fast within that period of time. So that's when we have crashes, if the move is to the downside, as we see very clearly here on the chart of oil. And versus here, when we have very quick moves up, this, by the way, cycle needs to be adjusted a little bit to the right to move between these two mid-cycle points. So hopefully you understand, but this is a very important concept that I want you to understand from all of this. When the period of time between two major inflection points, in this particular case, a major top and a major bottom, is short, once again, 12 months or less, the stock will move, not always, but 80% of the time, it will move with will sustain a very violent move going forward. So with that in mind, let's look at our recent fast equity and see what it's going to do going forward. So this is our analysis, and basically what it indicates is that this is a CE, hopefully I'm pronouncing the name of the company correctly, Celanese Corporation. And as you can see, it is moving into a major bottom that is scheduled for this cycle cluster or cycle composites right here. So if we click on it, it indicates February 4th. But now keep in mind that this particular long-term cycle of 5 years has a substantial margin of error associated with it. Typically 2 to 3 months, well, more like 2 to 1 months, but in this case 2 plus or minus 2 months would be a very good idea to have. So I already talked about these cycle clusters. You're probably wondering, what are these lines on the chart? And these are cycle clusters, and basically we kind of, our software once again does something very similar. It analyzes the entire chart and then picks out our proprietary cycle. And it's very important to mention proprietary cycles, a lot of math behind the scenes, but what it does, it identifies those cycles and then projects them into the future. Okay? And what we found also over the years is that when not when any given individual cycle arrives, but when there's a cluster of cycles, let's say 3, 4, 5 arrive at the same time, the probability of a turning point, whether it's a short-term or long-term, doesn't really matter, increases dramatically, particularly if those cycles are longer-term, strong cycles. We can nearly guarantee that there's going to be a turning point. So if we click on any of these lines, or we highlight any of the lines, as you can see on the left-hand side corner right here, we have 7 cycles, we have 2 cycles, obviously the more the better. And these cycles essentially line up with the cycle composites that we have here, also projecting the bottom and essentially confirming the exact date of the bottom of when this stock is gonna hit the low and then increase substantially. So what our software is identifying or suggesting here is that when we hit this bottom, which is going to happen relatively soon, then we're going to increase into this mid-cycle top, and the period of time between this bottom and this top is less than 12 months. Let's see, according to our software, it's approximately 6 or 7 to 8 months. Okay, so that's classifies as a potential fast mover. So the question becomes, well, where's the bottom, and how much higher it will go once the bottom is achieved. And we can calculate it once again with our three-dimensional calculations within the stock market. The green dots you see here are one of the representations of our calculations. They kind of identify individual points of where any particular stock is going to bottom. So if we click on this one, you can see it's $23 a share. If we click on this one, it's going to be $43 a share. Quite obviously a substantial difference between them. But when we combine all of this information with our timing parameters, we can ascertain exactly what that bottom is going to be. And then, well, let me show you another representation of essentially the same thing. So these are the bottom projections. So as you can see right here, the bottom that we saw here earlier in the year does not qualify as a legitimate mathematical bottom. All mathematical bottoms have to be within the green regions. So our software is making a projection that this is where it's going to be in terms of time and price, both. Now you're not seeing exact parameters in that for a reason, but the bottom is going to be right there, basically. Okay. So the next question becomes, well, okay, once it bottoms and begins to increase quite substantially in relatively fast fashion, where is the top? And we can once again very easily calculate it. And this is the amazing part of about our technology and our software and our mathematical work. I'm not familiar with anybody else doing anything remotely close to this. I mentioned Jim Simmons earlier, but perhaps the work was a little bit different, perhaps better, perhaps our work is a little bit better. I don't know, but I'm not aware of anybody else being able to do the following: be able to identify an exact upcoming turning point, in this particular case for CE, and within a relatively small margin of error, we can now narrow down the time and the price variable. That's what we do for our own purposes. And then, not only that, we're able to project what the next move is going to be. So let me show you. Okay, so we have to unclick these parameters, and we have to calculate this, and it's going to give us an answer of where the stock is going to go. So as you can see, this will be a very powerful move from approximately, let's say, $20, $30 a share, depending on where the exact bottom is, and it can go up to here at 250, 200, 250, but the highlighted green region is the high probability one, so it can go to as much as 350. Now there's a secondary. Let me show you something right here. I want to go back to the other chart right here, and now it is quite possible. Let's say there's a 50% chance that the move will happen between this bottom and this particular top, but most likely the move to that $350 share price will happen into this particular top of 2029. So that's very important to mention here. But the probability of this move happening quickly is also fairly high, but most likely it's going to happen. 75% probability that it's going to happen into this top. But nevertheless, it's a huge increase or return on investment, as you can imagine, 10x approximately. So either way, if it does happen quickly, wonderful. If it takes a little bit more time, all the same, we make a lot of money. Okay, so I think that about covers it. One last thing I wanted to mention about this is that this is preliminary analysis. This will get you perhaps looking at this particular stock and interested. Please do your own analysis to confirm of this, or to confirm these calculations. Well, you cannot confirm these calculations. None of this will show up on the technical side or the fundamental side, and that's very important to mention, because by the time these things show up on the fundamental side, it's going to be already too late. The stock's going to be up 200, 300, 400% if our price calculations are indeed correct. But technicals perhaps will be much faster in triggering entry into position, but they're not able to identify the exact bottom associated with these kind of stocks. And that's why I believe our work is by far superior to the fundamental analysis, which I am very much familiar with, and technical analysis, which I am also very much familiar with. So this is something to keep in mind. But what I was going to say earlier is that this is a general analysis for general public, perhaps get you interested in the stock. But our internal service, we have what we call targeting analysis, where we narrow down the actual price and the time of this particular stock bottoming, as in this case, and then subsequently we make much more accurate projections to what it's going to do going for future. So this is just one of many that we have. We do have a free trial associated with our service, and I do encourage you to request it. The link is in the description of this video. We also have a webinar coming up, and we also have what else do we have? Well, we have lots of stuff, but hopefully please click on the link and or click on the, that's right, we have a much better explanation of our mathematical approach in the description of this video. You can click on the link, you can take a look at our calculations, you can see proof of our calculations, you can see how our things really work and benefit from that. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. I think that's it for today. The stock market is performing as anticipated, as we discussed about a week ago. And yeah, everything is looking great. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful weekend ahead, and we'll be back with another series of videos next week. Bye-bye.